Welcome to the Long Range Pursuit Podcast, presented by Gunwerks, where we learn about and share long-range shooting techniques, science, and gear.
All right, Aaron, 20 years later, man, we're here at the Cody Firearm Museum. I just got a tour. It's crazy and wild.
Yeah, you didn't see all of it. You saw just a little bit of it.
I think I'm gonna have to, after our discussion, I'll probably walk around for 3 hours and just get caught up on some history, man.
Yeah, one of our favorite things to do with VIP clients is create an event or an experience where we come here and they'll actually go downstairs and they'll pull a special gun out of the vault and share a great story about the gun and the maker and the history behind it.
Sure.
Yeah,
No,
lots of fun.
It's an amazing venue to do this with you. I'm honored to be the guy interviewing you. When your folks message me, I'm like, that's awesome, because like through my whole history being outside of the gun world, more just a user and a guide and outfitter, I've seen your guys' content for 20 years. You know what I mean? And so I'm honored to be here interviewing you and to talk about how we got here.
Well, thanks for taking the dirty job of putting this together. Appreciate it. I think what they did was they said, well, how many guys has Aaron interacted with that didn't turn into an angry political rant? And I think we just had such a great rapport, they thought this one might be safe.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good bet. So, but when I've talked to you in the past, we haven't really, we've dove into all these technicalities and the innovations that you've brought to the firearm business, and even more like the training and how the tools are utilized. But I haven't really gotten the origination story. How you got here, how you chose to get into the gun business. So do you mind starting with that?
I love telling this story, and I think founding stories are always really, really interesting, especially when it's something that turns into something special. Like 25 years ago, it wasn't really that special. It was just some ideas, and then 15 years ago, it was getting some traction, and 10 years ago, and then 5 years ago, and today, it feels like we're actually doing something that's pretty cool. So, I grew up in a little farming community just 35 miles east of Cody, and man, I can remember the first time went deer hunting. And I think actually when we were kind of prepping for this and Jason was asking me a few questions and kind of pointing me towards some memories, so like I kind of don't live in the past. I live way out into the future. That's where
sure.
I'm interested in. But you start thinking back and you start looking at some memories and collecting some ideas that maybe formed you. It's like that first deer hunt was with my grandpa. My grandpa, his nickname was Skip. We were just talking about this.
Okay. That's
where I got my middle name from. That handle, Skip. And he was a pretty special guy for me. A lot of the things that I value, I can trace right to him, whether it's hard work or it's sense of humor or a passion for outdoors. Those are all things that I can kind of connect back to him, obviously through my father. But that first deer hunt, he had an old Japanese, I think it's Ariska, I think is the name of that. I was going to look it up, make sure I spelled it right. But it was a 6.5 caliber. And those came in these big full-length stocked, it was like an old World War II gun. And somebody along the line had cut it down and tried to refit a front sight on it. And,
okay.
I remember we went hunting and Grandpa said, well, you kind of have to aim at its feet for it to hit. And I remember having some challenges, doing the whole sights, and aiming and being successful, but we did get a deer killed. And, there's probably an element of that about how silly it is to aim and do all the work as a shooter, to line up the sights and to break the trigger and do everything to make a great shot, but then not have the weapon system, configured in a way that backs that up. Right. And so if we really go all the way back to the founding, that frustration of not having sights that actually are aligned with where the bullet's going to go is probably the first time or the core inspiration for where we've came with Gunwerks. But I spent that whole time in college chasing girls and building hot rods, and let me rephrase, building hot rods thinking that it would help me chase girls. And just I never really did capture that excitement for weapons. You know, Mike, my brother, was the gun guy. He always made sure we had a gun to go hunting with, and we'd go kill deer and have fun.
Right.
But that passion for weapons really came in college. I started college as a car guy, and I ended as a diehard, you know, go to sleep at night dreaming about firearms type person.
Do you remember like what was the thing that made you realize that this was a problem? Like you saw it when you were hunting as a kid. In the way you describe that, that's how I grew up hunting too, right? Cliffy hold over, just hold a little bit over his back. You know, that's how a lot of us grew up. And I think actually probably less young hunters are growing up that way now due to what's gone on in the business. But you saw that problem in your youth. But when you were in college, what was like, when was there a moment where you went, hey, like this is a problem that I can work on solving?
Probably not a moment, but if you think about it, I went from 0 to 100 miles an hour in just a handful of years.
Yeah.
And it really came from, I got married, started a family, then went to college. So
Gotcha.
Completely non-traditional college student. Started a business, and I could work hard for 4 months. And I could make enough money, usually, most years,
Sure.
to pay my way all the way through that first job the next year. But there was a couple years that got tight. I remember one year I made too much money and actually found out about taxes. That was a cold wake-up call. Sold a hot rod here, sold a car there. I might have started college with 12 or 13 cars. I mean, Impala Super Sports and Camaros and old 55 Chevy trucks and just tons of cool old vehicles, Caddies, everything. I could have started a junkyard with all the cool stuff I had. But just slowly realized that wasn't me anymore.
Yeah.
Right? And those start going by the wayside. But if you think about going to school in Laramie, Wyoming, right? Obviously there's some hunting, but I did my first elk hunt when I was in college. Again, I didn't catch this bug until later. So you got a little hunting that might happen, a little fishing that might happen. But other than that, that's a long time through the fall and winter months to get to spring again. And what I found was, you know, $600 for a Remington, $600 for a Leopold, you know, $250 for some reloading dies and some equipment. And all of a sudden I've got something to do that can keep me engaged.
Yeah, sure.
And so I started with, okay, well, let's put this cool gun together. You know, had no taste, you know, no really understanding of what was great. But had started to read gun mags and was starting to collect information and wanted to try a little this and that. And would go to the range and would develop loads and make things work, and got a pretty good sense of how that system worked and behaved and what the state of the art was. You know, was reading Ken Waters. Have you seen Ken Waters' Pet Loads? He's got a Pet Loads Volume 1 and 2. It's literally a collection of magazine articles. It's this big. It's massive. And so you start reading that, and it's like, okay, I've got this project I want to do. I want to reload for my 2520 that I bought. And so you'd go in there, and he would have all the information you would need. So I'd start there, and then I would load this and do that. And what I found was, very quickly, you would find the limit quickly with a firearm, and then it becomes boring.
Yeah.
So you want to shoot 100 yards and you want to shoot a tight group. It's like you could find the limit of that gun very quickly. You know, find a bullet, find a load, find a powder, set it up. And then once you hit that limit, then you're done. And then what's the challenge? You know, what's interesting about that? And understood very early on that challenge has a very low bar for success, and that shooting a small group becomes very boring very quickly.
Right.
Right. And what I really wanted to do, and I learned this, was I want to hit that target that's out there at 400 yards. How do I do that?
Right. And this is interesting because I was telling you 2 days ago, I went through all your old videos, some videos that are 15, 20 years old. And I want to put a little context to 15, 20 years ago, a guy shooting, like I pulled up a video and it was you, and you were shooting a ram, and it was on a grassy slope. You might remember
Oh,
the
I
hunt.
remember it.
And it's at 675. Okay, yeah. So you know the exact yardage. That's awesome. So you get it done. It's filmed great. In the context of today, it doesn't seem like that big a deal. But I remember 20 years ago, and 20 years ago, if I went to school and told people I shot a bull elk at 375 yards, they tell me I was full of shit. You know what I mean? That was the world that you were doing that in, right? It like what you're talking about is, it wasn't just day to day. People weren't shooting at animals 400, 500, 600 yards away. So I just have to say that because I think that gets lost in history a little bit, that this is something that's been developed in hunting over the last
We generated
decade.
a lot of skepticism and a lot of hate.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, in the beginning.
Yeah, you dive off on a little sidebar on that ram. There's the science of shooting at distance, and then there's the human psychology, and those are totally different things that are in play. And if you look at the products that Gunwerks has strived to create, we recognize the limitations of human psychology, and we try to leverage the technology so that it creates more opportunities for success. I remember that hunt. It's one of the greatest hunts that we've done. Met a great friend that's been a lifetime friend, GT Nunn. We hunted hard. We saw a lot of rams, and we decided this was the ram that we wanted to hunt. And we knew he was somewhere on that mountain, and we moved in really easy one morning. In typical sheep fashion, we tried to come in really high so that we were in a position of advantage. And we got to a point where, like, let's sit here and let's wait. We can cover 270 degrees of this mountain. He's gonna show himself.
Right.
And we had some wind and we had some weather, and I think we might have sat there for 6 or 7 hours. We got rained on. We had to get the rain gear out. It was miserable. And then in storybook fashion, the clouds break, the sun comes out, and then that ram showed himself. And I have not been as excited or as stressed to make a shot since, and it's been hundreds and hundreds of opportunities. But when we got set up on that ram, that distance, it might have been 575. I actually don't remember. But
I know it was north of 600.
It was a long ways.
You're in the realm.
But that ram, I remember there was a pretty good wind that was moving across, and my brother was with me, and he's always been a great spotter for me. But he told me, here's what we think the wind is. We make the adjustment and hold. And if you look at the video, we shot him right in front of the shoulder.
Yeah.
And it just dropped him. And what we didn't show on the video was we got up and packed our stuff up and started walking down, and he got up and was standing in the same spot. Like it was a big-bodied, tough ram.
Yeah,
like
sure.
He was double lung hit. He was smoked.
Yeah.
But he gets back up, and now you got that stress and worry of losing an animal. Well, we were 100 yards closer. We got back down, and I remember my brother telling me the wind is more than what we had estimated,
shot,
right?
Sure.
So instead of in front of the shoulder, the idea was, well, let's get one back a little bit further. But in that stress and that pressure of the moment, right, and that human psychology starts coming into play, I did the same exact thing and shot him in the same exact hole.
Yeah, I gotcha.
That bullet was no more than a half inch away from the first bullet that we put there. And a couple things come from that. One, the system is very easy to shoot at distance. And the real challenge is the guy that's driving the gun. And that's why we started the whole training program, was to try to help people establish the skills and the capability to use this equipment.
Right.
It's not just about building a great gun. It's about the system that understands human psychology and limitations, and making all of those things to come together into something that's basically spells success.
Yeah, it works for people. And going back to the timeline and those two elements, did you first started working on was it always about the technology and the system, and then you figured out the psychology component later on? Like, I'm talking the development of your business.
Well, in those formative years, right? So I look at college was where my appreciation of firearms and then my understanding of the physical world kind of happened at the same time. So I went to school to become an engineer. Graduated as a mechanical engineer. So the exposure to this challenge of the perfect shot, right? I mean, not just shooting a small group, but actually I want to hit that target out there.
Right.
And all of a sudden this challenge is there. At the same time, I'm learning about, vibrations and differential equations and thermodynamics and all of these things that define our physical world. And I think it was a wonderful combination of learning experiences. I would say there's two tracks with firearms that happened along the same timeline. One of them was getting a real appreciation for the history, the rich history and beauty and art of firearms. And like in college, poor kids, everything. Like I started trying to collect Winchesters, right? I started trying to collect rifles, and I mean, I still have a couple beautiful rifles that I bought at the time, like a 1910 Mannlicher Schunauer and 375 Nitro Express. It's one of my greatest collectibles I ever put together. I've still got an old Marlin 2520 that's one of my funnest lever guns to shoot.
Yeah.
There's a pre-model 11 Remington semi-auto, which is actually the Browning A5, way before Browning, was a company, and even before Remington picked that up and made the Model 11. It's got a straight grip stock on it, a beautiful piece of wood. Like, that is my pheasant killing machine.
Yeah.
So the rich history of the art of firearms, and my exposure to that was, you read a little bit of Jack O'Connor, and all of a sudden you got the feelings.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
Right, that's there. But through Jack O'Connor, I stumbled into Elmer Keith, because those two go together. Like, you can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
Elmer Keith was my guy. That was right in line with the way I was wired. And he came at firearms and weapons from a totally different perspective, very practical. And if you look back at some of the people that have inspired me, that it's the same thing. You go look at Newton Firearms Company, that was founded in the early 1900s, and that was some lawyer guy that got into guns.
Right.
Like, and he had a pretty cool mustache as well. So, but Newton invented, not invented maybe, but he was an early proponent and configurator of copper jacket lead core bullets. He was big about high velocity cartridges. He was working hard to make weapon systems that were phenomenal. The bolt action platform did a lot of development there. Taking the Mauser concepts and moving past that into more sophisticated products. But you go look, he was even doing different types of rifling. There was an oval rifling system that he did. But you go look at the cartridges he made. 250 3000 Savage, one of the coolest cartridges that there is, that was his. 25-06 was a 256 Newton. He did variations on the 30-06 that were like 7 millimeters. But he also had a Newton case, which was that 532-ish diameter without a belt. And he has a 30 version of that and a couple other versions of that. It's like, you go look at the 300 PRC, it's like that is essentially the old 30 Newton from 110 years before. Right? Yeah. It's just so far in the future he was operating. There was even a 22 caliber that ran a 90 grain bullet, 3,100 feet per second. What does that sound like? Right? You get 22 Creedmoor,
sure.
22
all
Arc,
the stuff that everybody's all like the
Yeah.
new hot things now. Yeah.
Yeah, we actually did we had the 22 243. We did that 18 years ago. That was really cool, and you found really quickly that fast creates inconsistencies that aren't really compatible with hunting rifles.
Right.
They're fun, but they're maybe not consistent.
Yeah, you got to deal with a different problem with the consistency.
But you look at all these guys, all the weapons guys. Like, so I went with Elmer Keith, and then that kind of went down this road of long range shooting, and you get into Hatcher with ballistics. That was early ballistic stuff. Whalen was also one of those OGs. But then I also stumbled on to Ross Seafried, which he was a, let's say, I don't want to say protege, but he was heavily influenced by Keith. Actually spent time with him, but I got really big into 6-gun shooting, revolvers, pistols, all of those weapons, and actually did a lot of hunting with it and built guns. But Ross Seafried taught about that and shared stories about that, but then he also talked about old classic rifles. And then I got into Whitworth, and he was an engineer that just did some amazing things in his time. Like, this is mid 1800s. And then there was Daniel Fraser, who was a little bit later in the 1800s, and a really cool maker. And I've got Scottish ancestry, and he was a Scottish maker, and so I kind of got excited about that. But he makes probably the coolest falling block, rifle that exists. It's just absolutely stunning.
Right.
And so I'm getting exposed to that art of a rifle and really understanding the term gunmaker.
Yeah,
right? Not gunsmith. I'm talking gunmaker.
Right, and you're talking about guys that were doing innovative things, which seems to be a theme of
well,
the
you go
business
read some of Elmer Keith, man. He wasn't scared to send lead.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So back as you developed, and you're using these guys as inspiration. They're all innovators that were ahead of their time. As you developed and got into the gun business, is there an innovation or a change or a thought you had as you started to develop rifles and systems that you're like, oh, this is kind of like what they were doing? Like something that, like, do you remember one of those first things, a stock design or anything like that?
So in college, to me, the tool that was really missing at the time, and it's really hard for people to back up and put themselves at this time.
At that time, what the
I really don't
was.
feel like I'm that old.
Yeah.
But it's a lifetime ago.
Right.
Like, there was not a mobile ballistic calculator that you could buy. Right. There pretty quickly, there became a tool called JBM Ballistics, where he just took those differential equations and he published a 3 degree of freedom solution method online.
Right.
But in college, there was nothing. Like, there were some drop charts you could get access to, and here's your holdovers 3, 4, 5, 600 yards. Sierra, had some ballistic, charts and tools that could help you predict, and a lot of the manufacturers would predict, here's how many inches of drop at different ranges. And I mean, they'd publish stuff out to all the way out to 400 yards.
Yeah.
Like, it was way out there. And what I found was, okay, I want to hit this steel at 400. How do I do this? Like, how do I build this system where when I go on an elk hunt and I need to shoot that far, how do I get there? And I think at the time, the state of the art was, Remington Ultramag, some type of Stadia crosshair, and you try to get some of this stuff to line up and get a round that was shooting good. And that's where the industry was at.
Right.
There was a lot of guesswork, and there was a lot of hope and pray involved in getting a bullet at distance. I can remember a hunt for a cow where I shot one at 400 yards, and I had the reticle all worked out to where with this gun, it was the Stadia post was 400, and then you're kind of everything in between was kind of a guess, but you at least knew where that one was, and it happened to work out. That shot was 400 yards, but that was pretty cool. But those limitations existed there, and for me, the interesting thing was, well, why can't we apply the science of ballistics, right? Because it's a body of work that exists, that it existed for a long time.
Right.
Why can't we apply that with today's tools and make something that can help me predict how I need to shoot? And I remember developing. I had a nerd calculator. It was called a TI-92. It was actually ginormous.
Oh yeah, I remember them.
And I remember programming like a really light, simple ballistic solver and a table lookup version. And I was in an entrepreneurship class, and I pitched this. Like we all had to pitch a business,
Sure.
right? And so I pitched this. I want to make a product, a little tool, a little handheld calculator that I can take in the field, obviously smaller than this. And when I get a shot opportunity, I put in all my parameters that I need, and it will calculate what I need to dial on my scope to hit that target. And I remember the professor, he thought he was some, smart genius, somehow had started this company and was successful, and now he's teaching us all how to do it. And he told me it was a stupid idea, that if he's shooting prairie dogs, he just shoots, and then wherever it hits, he just holds up and he shoots again.
Yeah, just adjust.
Like he just didn't understand, what I was trying to do, which was I want to actually hit it the first time. And that was the first product that I had envisioned that would connect, this kind of new approach to a hunter solving the problem of putting the bullet where it needs to go.
Right.
So rather than guesswork and rather than, hoping, it's apply these fundamental scientific principles and get this outcome.
In that, you knew that getting there would open up opportunities for innovation and everything else, different cartridge choices.
I had no idea.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I had no idea.
Yeah, this was just the problem you were focused on. You knew that was an issue at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when was that? When was that in the progression? Had you already been selling rifles?
No,
at that point? No.
I was still in college.
Oh, so you were.
I'm probably like junior year.
Yeah.
Where you're just starting to get a feel for,
That's interesting though. So the fact that it's not surprising now that you guys sell like a whole system, because the origination, like one of your first ideas, was not really the rifle. It was solving another tool that you knew eventually needed to be part of the program. I've never talked to you about it before, so it's kind of interesting that's what you pick, you bring up.
Well, I think once you've put there's all sorts of little piccadillies of a rifle system that can cause issues, right?
Sure.
But once you've got a rifle system that can shoot a good group at 100 yards, the missing piece is how do I correct for the distance and conditions? Yeah. And that is all the ballistic science.
Right. Yeah. And so I assume you get out of college, you've got a business unrelated to hunting. What happened next?
Well, thank goodness, I was a terrible student. I really was. I was probably at best a C+ type student. I struggled with homework because it was really boring.
Sure.
And a lot of it seemed like it was busy work. I was really good at testing. And so I tried to rely on that capability as much as I could.
Yeah,
so
gotcha.
I was coasting a little bit. I didn't do the internship track. I did my own job. I built my own business and I did my own work. I think that last summer before I graduated, I think I did $75,000 of profit. Now this is 20 years ago profit, right?
Killing it.
Yeah. And the people that were getting jobs for $50,000 to maybe $65,000 a year as engineers. But they had spent 2 summers interning.
Right.
And the poor guys like me that really didn't play that game, they went home and worked on the farm or did whatever. Like, we weren't having a lot of luck. I graduated in 2001. I think that year Lockheed Martin laid off 3,000 engineers. So anybody could go have their pick of an engineer that had 3+ years of experience.
Sure.
Like it was rough. And so you combine my mediocre academics with, the fact that I'd never interned for anybody. And actually looking back, I think the fact I was an entrepreneur, I think that scares a lot of big companies.
Yeah.
I don't think they...
You're like a flight risk.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
So I negotiated a job with a group in Sheridan that did air safety, and I got a job offer for like $34,000, $35,000 a year, and I'm like, oh my gosh, right? And it was like every day for a whole year to earn that kind of money. And I'm like, you know what? I got to do my career. It's like, this is a foot in the door. And I went to him, I said, hey, look, if you'll let me work 4 10s and pay me $36,000 a year, I will come work for you. And they turned me down. And I am so thankful.
Yeah.
So what I did was I just built my business, made it a little bit bigger, took on bigger projects, did some really cool stuff, solved problems in a different area. But in the back of my mind, like, I'm kind of into guns.
Yeah, because you'd been in the weeds on the guns.
And I'm getting into hunting a little bit, and it's building momentum. And I just got to the point where, like, man, I have this calling to go do this. I could be successful here, but man, the passion's not there.
Yeah, sure.
Like, I want to go this direction. And so geez, I can't remember, was I 5 or 6 kids in at the time? I think I might have been 6 kids in. And I'm like, I'm young enough that I just think that there's no failure in front of me.
Right.
I just don't know how I could have had a different configuration that would have allowed me to do this. Any amount of sense, and I never would have started.
Yeah, even hearing you say it out loud, as a guy with 3 kids and older than you are, to make a shift like that, to not stick with the non-rifle business that you were building, to have 6 kids, it's a pretty epic move in my mind.
And if you look at it, I was wanting to go do something that nobody was doing.
Right.
There was no pattern. There was no market for it. There was no industry. Right? It was just something completely new. It was blue ocean territory.
Right.
Now, it's exciting to work in that direction, right?
Sure.
Because you don't have to play there. Now, the guys I was really looking up to in the industry at the time were Mark Bansner, John Lazzaroni. There was another one, Kenny Jarrett. They all had great stories about their businesses and the products that they built, and they had kind of these niches, and they were kind of the people that the gun writers would write about, that were making the finest, custom guns in the U.S.
Right.
Right, and they had an accuracy story and a high performance long range story and a lightweight, story, and it's like they made really cool stuff and they were inspiring, but it's like that's not the business that I was following. So I didn't have a template to go say, well, I just have to do what these guys are doing,
right,
and do it just a little bit better or a little bit cheaper or whatever my shtick was. It's like I had to invent a ballistic solver. I had to invent the technology that would make laser mark a ballistic turret on a rifle system and do it on a custom basis for every single rifle. I had to invent a rifle stock and to put the systems together for, gathering the components to do a rifle. I actually started an optics company at the same time. A lot of people don't know this, and I don't talk about it a lot because it brings up a lot of sore subject and hard feelings.
Sure.
But I started a little optics company, contacted one of the premier Japanese makers, and I don't know how, but I talked him into doing a project with me, and we developed just a nice little 5 to 20 magnification scope with the right reticle, used my ballistic turret system. I even invented an old school, real simple zero stop, the most complex thing that I could communicate to them on drafted paper. We didn't use solid modeling back there, and
right,
neither did they. It was all drawn prints. Like there was so many things that I had to do that were just, there was no map for.
Right. Do you remember, what was the first thing that you sold within the business?
Well,
within the
the idea, the whole concept of the shooting system was originated from the beginning, and that's what we delivered. We didn't increment into it.
Oh, okay. So it was always you were going to build a hunter, a shooting system.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember who were the story of the first system you sold?
I do not remember. I remember the conversation. I was in the car. The guy called me. We kind of explained what we were doing. And he's like, I'm in, sign me up. We're talking, I started officially January 2006.
Yeah.
Incorporated, we're on. We delivered, I think we built like 100, 200 units, kind of set up to run that many units, and delivered the first ones April of 2007.
Yeah.
So I spent that whole year kind of getting that system together, doing the design with the optics team, getting those procured, supply chain management. And then we did that first stock design. I actually used a gentleman up in Canada. His name was Ian Robertson. And he was wheelchair bound, but he did the coolest bench rest stocks. And somehow we connected with him, and he built the design that I had created for a rifle stock. And so just this huge sourcing and supply chain, problem to bring all these components together and then start assembling and then delivering. And I don't remember the name, but I remember that conversation where we had just mentioned it on a forum of what we were doing or something, and got that excitement.
And then once you saw, did it catch on pretty quickly? The idea of selling a system. And I think again we have to add some context because now it seems so normal, Aaron. Like all the manufacturers of rifles out there, and a lot of people are selling the system.
Well, they had a pattern to follow.
Yeah, sure. But once you started selling it, did it catch on really quickly, or was it up and down?
Nobody believed it was true.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So what we had to do was start a marketing program where essentially all we did was we would go hunting and we would film ourselves and we would capture that hunt and that shot. And then we would edit it, make a TV program and air it. And so those hunt experiences and the success that we had in the field and those shots, that was the proof, right? The proof of the pudding is in the eating. And so now we could show the proof and people would start to believe. And then, once you start selling and delivering, and then those people, find success and they share. I don't think we've ever sold, more than half of our guns. Our customers sell the vast majority of our weapons.
Just word of mouth.
Sure.
One guy liked the system, tells his buddy, and it goes on from there. It's funny because I remember watching your show when hunting TV was a thing. Now it's dissipated a lot. It's not. Somebody tells me they have a hunting show. I don't even know where I would watch it, right? Because it's moved to these different forms of media distribution. But I do remember watching yours, and I remember even within my crowd, it was controversial, and there was still disbelief. And so I feel like that's when you started to get, that's when there's a little controversy, but also you were getting exposure, right? Yeah. So,
well, back to, we still have problems with people believing that the math and the science works.
Yeah.
We still have that gap in knowledge and understanding today. So it's not surprising, obviously, that there was a massive canyon back then.
Right.
But there was another faction back then. There was a lot of guys in a very small niche that had figured out how to do this. Right. That had figured out how to dial scopes and to hold and to get a ballistic solution. Remember, JBM Ballistics had started there, and so they could go print out a drop chart and have this information. And they felt that they had hard earned the privilege to be able to send lead at distance. And they were very upset with me providing this system to people who didn't also earn that privilege.
Yeah.
Right? And I was basically taking something that was their identity, right? Their specialty and their identity was to be able to do this thing. And I was making it commonplace.
Right.
And so there was even a lot of hate from people that knew that it was possible.
Right.
And saw what I was doing.
Yeah, they felt like you were monetizing something that was special to them, or they had earned, and that still exists in all different facets of hunting. So that's interesting to hear that. But that was your main distribution. You get the message out via your show, and you start to grow. Was it all just like a linear line up as you grew, or was there some big bumps along the road?
No, we had plenty of hardship to get there.
Any pivotal time where you thought, hey, this may not work?
Yeah, there was maybe about 2 or 3 times where we were done. I remember when we first started, I was very young, very naive, and I knew I had something with the potential for greatness in the optics thing that I had started. with the ballistic science and all those things that were there. It was so blue ocean, and it was so new that I knew it could become a $100 million company. But I knew that I didn't have the resources and the financial backing to make it happen. And I brought in partners. And they made big promises about the dollars. They made big promises about what they would do. And very quickly proved that they were full of crap. Right? And poor me, I'm a young 25, 26-year-old kid. I didn't know. And within a couple years, like before 2 years were up, I think I had to sell all of my machine equipment, my whole machine shop, just to raise funds to help fund what we were doing. And that was a key for where that was going. And we ended up having a big split about 2009, 2010.
Okay.
Turned into ugliness and lawsuits, and I was able to extract just enough. I'd protected Gunwerks, but I was able to extract just enough value in reputation, personal reputation, and in obviously the knowledge to do that, we were able to put it together and save it and continue going.
Right.
That was one. That was one big one.
One of a few of them.
Yeah.
And so during this whole progression, it's interesting to hear the whole story, Aaron, because you're in college, you're getting exposed to it, you've got the interest, it's all boiling up, and then you're also doing a lot of hunting yourself as part of this TV show on the longer ranges side of things. I'm sure you're developing as a shooter and a hunter too along the way, just because of the experience. And that brings me to my next question: is that, like, what was the precipice for your education component of the business? Like when you realize, like, okay, we need to start doing classes with people. We need to start going down that road too. Where did that idea start?
Well, we've always had the best customers. Think about those guys, those early guys that said, you know what? I have faith that this is real. It's not a gimmick.
Yeah.
And they gave me money. They built this whole business, right? Those guys that took that chance on a little company in Wyoming. I mean, obviously had personal reasons to do it, right? And hope that it would provide them the success they wanted, but they did it.
Right.
And they benefited from a product that was decades in advance of the current industry state of the art. And they got the benefits of that. So their faith and their dollars, earned them the value.
Yeah, they weren't guys that were going to be like, this guy has a cool product, but I'm going to wait 10 years.
But they were all people that had money. I remember we were around $5,500, $6,000 for a system at the time.
Expensive system, sure.
I didn't know how to price the guns, but I was smart enough early on to know, well, our product is better than Kenny Jarrett's, so it needs to cost more money.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we kind of worked our way into it. And looking back, it's like, probably should have been more, profitability is a really important part of a business.
Yeah, to run your business. Sure.
But you look at the customers that we had and our ethos and concept of this, to become a gun maker. Like we weren't just, gunsmiths. We were gun makers. That's where the Gunwerks comes from. It was pointing towards that continental experience that you would get if you went to Wesley Richards or to Holland or any of those guys that were building guns on the continent or in Great Britain. But they would get this box and you open the box and here's this gun and here's the ammo that the gun had regulated sights for, and the whole thing was kitted and ready to travel to India and serve a guy that was maybe going to be stationed there for 5 years, and he could go do all the hunts and all the experiences and be successful. And that was that same ethos we pulled in when we created that concept, that name, and the brand and the intention to have this 1,000 yards out of the box experience. And the foundational knowledge of how the system works and simplifying that enough that you can communicate it to a layperson and giving him the tool sets and the skill sets to be successful with the weapons. Like, what if I'm off at 600 yards? How do I solve that problem, right? Is it a trajectory problem? Is it a ballistics truing problem? Is it a zeroing problem? How do I fit the scope? How do I adjust that? How do I understand the effect of parallax et cetera, et cetera. I realized that by helping our customers be more knowledgeable and have more tool sets to be successful, that they would be more successful, and their success would translate into more product sales for us. So that desire to train was just an extension of that goal to serve our customer and to help them be as successful as possible. And I think a real side benefit, looking back in reflection, was by doing that training and teaching those people, right? At the same time, I'm experiencing all these new hunts and opportunities,
Right.
and we're building products and trying to solve all these problems at once. I learned so much from training our customers. What are the things they struggle with? Where are the hang-ups and hiccups, right? Where does the product fail them and let them down? And so now all of a sudden we've got this absolute direct integrated connection where our customer is such a close part of our business, and the feedback loop is so short.
Right.
Right? We don't have a marketing department deciding what the customer wants. I don't actually care what the customer wants. We're going to build this awesome product, and then we're going to tell the customer why they want it.
Right.
Right? We're not going to be reactive to the market. We're going to set the tone and pave the way to something new. Our customer didn't want our product.
Sure.
Right? But once we showed them how to experience it, and once we showed them what the benefits were, right? And that's where our whole education thing came from. We started with online education, and then we're like, okay, we can do this in person, and that's grown to 3 full-time people, year-round training. I think every long-range hunting school that exists has pulled from us either the formula, the instructor, the actual instructors, our instructors go everywhere.
You trained a lot of them.
But the concept and content of what we do has really driven that. Often duplicated.
Yeah. Well, and I this morning I shot with Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, is Brian your lead instructor?
Yep.
And you had a great facility. It was fun to sit down and shoot. I shot the Index this morning. And it is, I've gone to a lot of shooting schools and shot a fair amount in my life and dealt with hunters over the years. But it is amazing, Aaron, to sit down and 4 or 5 shots in, be hitting vital size targets at 800, 900 yards. And I understand there's, I think anybody that has much experience with hunting and shooting, they know certain conditions, there's limitations to that. But it's still amazing. It's amazing just to be able to go out there and use the system.
I actually feel that it's very easy to impress clients at a training event.
Yeah.
Because you can coach them quickly to do things they never thought were possible. And they read that success as
they're capable of doing it.
Yes.
Right.
As capability. And our goal has always, in our classes, we'll spend a lot of time in classroom. We'll teach things that'll make your eyes roll in the back of your head. But it's foundational, fundamental knowledge that when you can process it and understand it, now you can apply it to different situations. So when you run into a problem, you can solve the problem on your own, right? Or you run into a situation, you can project what you need to do to be successful. And that's our goal. It's not just the sensationalism of hitting a target at distance, which you'll get from a lot of different places. It's the foundational principles that can help you solve your situations and the foundation you can build your knowledge on for a lifetime.
Right. The training environment, do you feel like it helped you iterate on some of these, stock design features and those sort of things? Because you had a kind of a testing environment.
Absolutely.
Just the number
Absolutely.
of reps.
And prove concepps. I can one really, really distinct learning moment for me. We knew the whole concept of the way the rifle behaves, the physical rules that the rifle goes through once you break the trigger. And if you go look, I think we've created the foundation for the modern rifle stock, and we did that 20 years ago. We applied engineering principles and an understanding of that physical reaction of the rifle to try to improve the performance of the system. So that's less muzzle rise, it's better tracking on bags, it's more control, it's less shooter influence on the rifle. So the whole goal was to try to cut, and I can run you through a litany of things where we're just trying to cut out problems for the customer before they ever happen.
Right.
And so if you look at that rifle stock and the development of that and implementation of that, starting with the LR1000 and now looking all the way to say like the Nexus and how impactful that is, not just for our customers, but how that's trickled into every single manufacturer's rifle stocks today. Right? It's influenced everything that everybody gets to buy. So we're lined up. We're at. We used to do a lot of these trainings down in at our good buddies Travis Murphy's Western Lands. Now it's Ensign Hunting Ranches. But so we would go down to this place in Utah, south of Evanston, 300,000 acre, 250,000 acre ranch, just beautiful. And I remember we'd set up a bunch of benches and we had our awnings and it was outdoors and it was rustic, but it was pretty fun.
Sure.
And we had a couple extra people in class. So we set up a new bench and we had a new rest and we were using some of the Caldwell Rock rest equipment, and it still had the factory rest. And next to it, we had an old worn-in, Caldwell system, but it had a leather front rest that we had replaced it with. And so in understanding of how important it is to not influence the rifle's recoil movement, right, and how that can cause point of impact shift. But here was a perfect example of like a learning and kind of cementing that knowledge with real actual results. So here we've got a great shooter shooting this one, and we're at 960 yards, I believe. And this shooter is just hammering, like right around the bullseye, sub-minute of angle, probably approaching half-minute of angle type performance. We're chasing wind a little bit back and forth. And then this shooter right here is just up and down and up and down and just all over the plate, getting very frustrated. Now, the way I usually like to run these is, it's not one person trying to train 10 or 12 people, right? I have a trainer for every 2 shooters. So you can sit there and manage them and help them. And so I've got a guy over here and he's trying to manage these. He's trying to troubleshoot and I'm looking and I'm feeling the vibe. I'm like, I need to go step into this. So we stepped in and we looked at what was going on and just double-checked a few things, double-checked parallax, double-checked rear bag control, just a couple basic things. And like, that's not the problem. And so I said, well, let me try something. And I switched front rests with those 2 guys and I sat him down and let him shoot again. And now everything went right to where it was supposed to be. And the only difference was those cheap Caldwell fake leather rests, with the little green nylon. They were so sticky that rifle, it was creating friction on that rifle's
grabbing the forearm as it recoiled.
And you would get different performance, every shot to shot. And so as soon as we swapped that to something slippery, boom, fixed it. Right? And so then what we did is we just laid a piece of paper over that rest and let the guys just shoot off of that piece of paper. That's a little kink that we found to solve, like a tracking issue. And that little bit of knowledge informs so much about product development and systems that you build. You just take that we learned and extrapolate that into bipods.
Right.
Right. And everybody today, they're like, okay, Harris bipod was a standard forever. I've wanted to build a bipod since about 2014, 2015. We built one, and in typical Aaron fashion, it turned into this monster project. I had gears that connected the legs because I wanted to be able to just grab one leg, pull it down, everything deploys.
Okay.
Anyways, over the top. Finally, we said, we got to focus on guns. Let's just leave it alone. Shelved it. But we came back and we created that Elevate a few years ago. And so everybody wants this really rigid, fixed bipod. And you can go look in the space, and there's all these bipods that you lock down, you make rigid, they hit these locks, and they're just there tight. But if we go back to what we learned on that rifle system, what we really want is we want a bipod that has some movement. And so every bipod that we've ever done has at the very least, we look for a 1/2 inch of movement from the back wall to where all the play's out to where you push it forward and all the play is forward. So you have this movement. And what happens is when you pull that trigger, that gun's going to start moving back in recoil. And as it moves back, you want nothing to disturb it. Like all of our grips these days keep our thumb on the right side of the line of the stock.
Yep.
And we're doing that so that you can't over control the stock.
So you're not going to torque
Yep,
that
we've
grip.
been teaching people forever to get away from the stupid adjustable cheek rest and kind of running them up real hard and putting a hard cheek pressure on there. And what we're trying to get everybody to do is keep their head square and do a jawline cheek rest. And you're seeing this teaching start to be pervasive throughout the industry and teachings as well. You're starting to see that have an effect. But what that does is it disconnects your face. So as that gun recoils, your toe line's going to let the stock drop a little bit. If they've adopted my negative comb, the comb is pulling away from your face a little bit. And not only are you minimizing the felt recoil, but you're taking your face and the reaction of your face out of the influence in that stock as it starts to recoil. Well, that's the same thing that the bipod does.
Right.
So as that starts to recoil, like we'll get on the gun and then we'll push it forward into the wall and hold it there, light pressure. And then when it recoils, it has all this movement that it can come back before it connects to the ground through the legs. And so take that same principle. Any bipod that has a 45-degree forward position, you can't have that same behavior. Because just by the fact of that position, you are sitting at the backside of the wall. It's the exact opposite of what you should do. So you don't see a bipod that we make that has a 45 position.
I got you.
And it tells me, right, as a designer, that I understand this. It tells me that the people that create those products, they don't understand how their products work. And they're literally selling something to their customers that makes it worse, makes it harder for the customer to be successful. It's like they think, oh, if I tighten this up really tight and it's all rigid, it's better. Right? And then they tell their customer that, but they actually don't know. There's so many people in our space that don't know how things work. They don't understand first principles. And so they just copy products.
Right.
And then try to copy somebody else, and then they deliver these products to customers, and sometimes they screw it up along the way.
Right. And do you think that part of that is that they're taking like back to your concept that you're not always going to listen to the customer? A lot of times they take that approach in their products because it's market driven. They just go, hey, people want a bipod that they can angle that way, so we don't really need to think about it. We're just going to make that.
Yeah. It is.
I feel like that happens a lot in the business.
Yeah, and they copy things without understanding the ramifications.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's go back to one innovation that I have seen. To me, it seems like a trickle, Aaron. Maybe to you it doesn't, but the negative comb on the stock. I mean, it seems like every new stock I just saw one a couple days ago come out where the cheek piece, it's a marketing point. The cheek piece is negative comb now. In this particular company, every other one of their cheek pieces is not that way, but it tells me like that's where they're going because they know that that's where the market's going.
Yeah, so we did that. We invented that. I claim it. Show me one before then. Doesn't exist. Now, not just the negative comb, but the combined element of the negative comb plus the recoil pad moved up as high as possible. So there's a twofold response there. Number one is, as we just described, it's to disconnect your face from the recoil impulse.
Right.
But the second thing is by moving that line of reaction up, right? By moving the recoil pad up, because you can go back and find some old Monte Carlo stocks that had a negative comb, but they had this recoil pad that's way down here. When the gun recoils, all the force, the reactionary force, right? Bullets going this way, there's a reactionary force that's going this way, right? And that's, you could just say, down the line of the barrel. If you are on your stock and you push here, and you've got this force here, now you have a moment, and that moment creates muzzle rise.
Yeah.
Right? Which brings the stock up to your face, right? And it lifts the barrel. So if you can create a line of reaction or force on the stock that is more in line with that driving force, then now you can minimize the that reaction. So it's the two things in combination that I claim, right? And I claim it for the reason of I know how it works. I promise you that Roy Weatherby, with his extremely exaggerated Monte Carlo stock, knew about this principle back then, about how pulling it away from your face made it hurt worse. Now, his motivation was different because he's shooting these just monster gargantuan cartridges going faster and faster and faster. And people didn't shoot off of bipods back then, right? They didn't do precision shooting. It was stand up, hold it up, and shoot. And so his design was maybe anatomically correct for the period.
Right.
But that would be let's say I'm a big fan of inspired design. I understood what he was doing, but I had a different purpose, and I could apply a similar exercise of manipulating my stock geometry to get an intended outcome. Including the toe line of the stock. The classic American, goes from the toe right up to behind the trigger, and we flatten that down. And again, inspiration, where'd that come from? Watch the bench press guys.
Yeah.
They didn't have a toe line, it was flat. Why did they do that? And why didn't we just go flat? Right? Because in the field, you need to be able to manipulate your bag to get support, and a flat toe line doesn't do it. Our Gen 1 Magna stock, we took it too far. It was too flat.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've been down all these roads that all these guys are going, but what they're copying is that product that we created. And we were very careful. We didn't talk about it. The first decade we were in existence, one of the coolest things we had was this very specific design geometry that side by side with the leading stocks of the day were night and difference in performance. And you might think I'm joking about this, but we literally had a customer that wanted 2 338 Lapuas. And we built them exactly the same. One went on our LR1000 stock and one went in a Macmillan A3. And so that was the reference standard long range stock. And it's been the pattern that everybody's copied for the last 2 decades. That was the thing to copy because in silhouette, it looks so cool, right? Big bulky grip, has a dead flat comb, right? And it a really cool stock. But when you shot those two guns side by side, I couldn't shoot this one. It was so miserable and uncomfortable to shoot. And when you shot this one, you're like, how is this even possible? It's the same weight, same cartridge, same everything, and yet this is pleasant and controllable, and this is miserable. And we're like, this is very special. We do not talk about this. Sure. Because we didn't file a patent. We didn't file a design patent. We didn't claim anything there. We just created something great and put it in the marketplace. Right. And we're like, let's not share with anybody what's going on here because we don't want to inspire anybody else's design.
But the consumer would get the benefit just from the experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So about 6-7 years ago, right, we introduced, 25, 17, it's about 8 years ago. We did 3 new stock designs, Climber, Magnus Gen 2, and Verdict. And as we introduced those and we started creating marketing assets for it, we started sharing this concept of the negative comb and explaining what it does. Just like we've done for the last 2 decades of teaching people about external ballistics and shooting systems and what the benefit is and how it all works. The benefits of focusing on high BC, lower velocity, less recoiling rounds. Like we've been teaching everybody all these things forever. And just like teaching everybody about ballistics brings the whole industry up, as soon as we started teaching everybody about stock design, proper stock design, the whole industry is advanced because of that.
And I guess that comes to a more personal question I was getting at, Aaron. Do you view the fact that the industry has adopted elements of your stock design, do you view that as a Gunwerks and a personal achievement, or do you view it as a business annoyance?
I should have done a design patent.
I got you.
I should have done a design patent. If you don't protect what you have, then you need to prepare yourself emotionally to be copied.
Sure. Yeah, people are going to use it.
But at the same time, I haven't originated every single idea I've ever had.
Yeah.
Everything that I've created has been based on the building blocks of other great people that have gone before. There's a key difference and differentiation that I like to make. There are people in our industry that are creative, that are willing to go their own way and try to solve the problems either in manufacturing or function or even design and build their own unique products. And I would say an example that I'm always impressed with is Glenn Seekins. We've talked about him. Like he started just doing ARs and building a business, but as he's gotten into the bolt world, like we've really seen that company, and I'm not sure who all the designers are over there,
Right.
but we've seen them solve the different problems their own way. And have they all been a success? No, but anybody that does anything new, that goes a clean slate, clean sheet design, and I've got a great story to tell you if you'll remind me. There's another one of those crises that about killed us. But anybody that is willing to do something new, that doesn't have a pattern to copy from somebody else, is taking a huge risk.
Sure.
And I admire that big time, right?
Yeah.
There's so many people out there that say, hey, here's a product, do it just like that. Well, there's a gun company that literally took one of our climber stocks, and it's the most unique stock in existence today. It's got a rounded grip and all the things that we've built. It's very epic. He took that stock and he gave it to one of his design engineers and he said, copy this. And he literally showed up to SHOT Show with an almost duplicate replica. Now, they couldn't make carbon the way we could, so a lot of the hard edges and the fine lines and a lot of the elegance of the product was escaped, but the functional thing was there.
Right.
And even to the flush-mounted Picatinny rail. Now, I didn't have any IP on this.
Sure.
But I went and I threatened him, and I had the lawyers threaten him, and I freaking scared him enough that it made him go change some things. But after a year, he kind of figured out that I didn't have any teeth.
Yeah.
And I was just being a bully.
Sure.
And but somebody that does direct copy, I have no respect for. No respect. We did this really beautiful bipod. If I look at it, there was 2 different engineers and I had over 18 months. So my gut tells me I could have had as many as 2,000 hours of engineering work to ideate and design something from first principles, right? And we built that and sold 1,000 of them and found a problem. And I literally replaced those first 1,000 with the next generation that solved that problem. Just throw them away, here's a new one. Big cost.
Sure.
So all of that toil and pain, and there's a little pissant company that this year, literally, they took our product, shipped it to China. They didn't do the design. They shipped it to China and said, hey, rip this off, make these couple changes. And they were just launching it at the Cowboy Christmas. And it's the same product.
Right.
What they don't understand is that they violated a patent. So we did have some IP on that they violated. But it's like, I have no respect for a company that just duplicates.
Right. I have a feeling from our conversations, part of that, Aaron, is that you've gone through taking the risk. And so you're gonna appreciate seeing other people take a risk to innovate.
And not fail.
Yeah, but people who decide, hey, I'm not gonna take the risk, I'm just gonna extract, some sort of monetary gain from somebody else taking the risk, it's hard to palate that. And I understand that as an entrepreneur.
It's a reasonably smart business model. Right? If you look at, you use Apple.
Sure.
Apple doesn't do a lot of innovation. They just have a really nice execution of things that have been developed before. Technically, ever since they launched the iPhone, they haven't really done anything since then. But oh my gosh, their hardware's nice. They do a great job of it.
Right.
There's a lot of little builders that assemble rifles right now that are great products. And I don't begrudge those guys the business that they've created there.
Right.
Assembling these systems. Now, I think their customers don't quite understand the value proposition that offers, and I think that they may overcharge a little bit, but the truth is, charge as much as you want. Hopefully someday they take those profits, instead of spending it on themselves, they reinvest it in the industry and they create something for themselves, right? And they have a contribution to move our sport and our space forward.
Right. And then I want to get into how you've gone down the path of vertically integrating. But before, do you want to touch on the
Oh,
story?
okay. Yep. Appropriate time. So when we first started, we had a stock design, right? I went to Jerry Stiller, and Jerry Stiller was making an action for us. So he was one of the early guys. There's only a few people in the space that were making aftermarket actions. It was a pretty closed marketplace. I went to Jerry. He was an engineer. He was doing this on the side. He was such a grouch. I really loved that guy. Like, great guy. And he had a great product and did a really good job of it. And we started buying this product, and we learned a lot about actions, and we helped him fix some issues that existed in his product. And one of the things that we learned was, okay, so you got this extractor. What we were doing is the typical Remington 700 upgrade, where you put an M16 style extractor, and to fit it, you go right above the lug. And what we found is you put a big scope on there with a windage, on it. You go pull that cartridge out. It tries to kick a shell up. Sometimes it would come back. Mike was on a giant mule deer over in Idaho once, and he freaking shot, and he needed another shot. And he goes like this, and it's just jammed in there, and it's all backwards. And from that day, we're like, this never happens again. And so we tried to modify that extractor, and we would file off the corner, and it would kind of work. But now you had this really small, extractor. And so we're with Jerry. We're like, hey, man, we have to change this. Like, we need to develop something new. We need to solve this problem. And I think he was at a point where he was thinking about selling, or he was wanting to retire. We're like, I'm not going to rock the boat. And at that point where you realize that the product you have does not serve your customer to the best of your knowledge, you have to change. Right. And so that's the point where we're like, okay, well, let's design our own. And so we went and said, okay, well, we need to make this an inline substitution, right? I don't want to redo everything. It has to fit stocks. It has to fit all of our parts and pieces. So we chose that Remington 700 platform, round body, two lug, et cetera. And it was the right decision, but man, I've been trying to get away from that for so long ever since. I wish we would have just done something different. So here we are taking on this design and building an engineering team. And if you don't understand how everything works together and you go to do this design, if you're copying exactly, then you're a little bit safer. But we're like, why do we have this anti-bind rail? This sucks, right? It always sucks. Like, let's get rid of it. We're like, what are these threads in the back? It's so hard to take a bolt apart. Let's do a bayonet style, right?
Figure out why.
Right? And then we're like, okay, we got to solve this extractor problem. That was the only thing we created that didn't cause problems. Yeah. So we built a really cool extractor using kind of a very similar to a 1911 pistol style. Okay. And we drill a hole in the lug, and then we had this one piece, and we would bend it, and it was spring steel. It actually was pretty cool. At one point, I sold 300 or 400 of them to Jim Borden, who is the action maker in the world. And for me to have created a design that was good enough that guy would want to buy some from me, right? That was pretty cool. So we solved that problem, and it kicks shells straight out the side. It was just amazing. But when we took on this fire control bit and we changed the shroud and the way everything put together, there's a lot of stuff that we didn't know. And the things that you don't know are the ones that just about kill you. And so we built the prototypes, we made some good actions, and at this point, like, our shop was 4,000 square feet. We had 6 or 7 CNC machines in there, and I didn't have room to do this. We didn't have the skills internally to do this. So we found a few shops that we could work with to do the actions and the bolt bodies, and we would send out to those guys to make these parts. So we make these prototypes, we put them together, they're awesome. And so in typical Aaron fashion, we're like, okay, that's it, let's go. Order 200 of them, let's go. So we procure, we get the supply chain moving, we just make the change in line, we start building guns with these actions, and we're just going. We're getting some weird performance on the first ones, we're culling some stuff, a few things are going out, and then all of a sudden we realize, hey, we have a problem. Like, there's a problem here that is causing precision issues and causing flyers, and we weren't sure what it was. And we went through this first principles thing. It's like, we have bullet problems, we have ammo problems, we have barrel problems, we have bedding problems, action problems. It's like, our action's great, we don't have action problems, right? And so you go through all this stuff, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. We were probably like a $3 or $4 million a year company doing 200 or 300 guns a year. And all of a sudden, 6 months goes by and we haven't shipped a product. And like we're in,
Killing you.
oh yeah, like we're weeks away from the end. Like we're weeks away from the end. And what we determined was the supplier wasn't quite getting a dimension just right, and we were putting just a little bit of bind between our bolt shroud and the firing pin. We've got this really nice precision fit. It's a reamed hole. We've got this Swiss turned firing pin. We've got this tight fitment. And what we found was we had to go back and modify that shroud so that it left a donut of precision fit, and the rest of it allowed the firing pin and the shroud to pivot. And as soon as we did that, perfection. And we were able to take that shroud back and retrofit everything that was there, even grab some guns back from customers and upgrade them and improve their performance. And I mean, weeks.
Right.
We were weeks away from. So, and all we did was we just tried to improve this one thing, which is a field strippable bolt. So you could take it apart, you could service it, you could troubleshoot it, and you could put it back together. Right. Just that one thing, and it about destroyed us. So when I see a company that will take a risk and actually do something new, right, and go away from an existing pattern where you can just copy and rinse and repeat, and do something that's like, okay, nobody's ever done this before, but we're going to try it. I admire it, especially when they pull it off and it doesn't kill them.
Yeah, sure. Well, and also, and that was that the start of the integration into the barrel?
Yeah, you can see that like, okay, well, that supplier, because they weren't able to control and deliver what we needed, it started two things. Number one was this appetite to get control of everything, and the other one was, hey, if we can't measure what our suppliers are sending us, then we have no idea what we're putting together. And so it kind of developed this whole passion for proving that what we've designed and asked for is what we are getting. Right. And now that serves us in our manufacturing efforts, but it also helps us keep suppliers in check as well.
Yeah. This morning, Jason showed me several of your Skunkworks projects and your limited editions and those sort of projects that you guys have done. And that gets me to kind of some thoughts on your customer. One thing in our discussions before, Aaron, is I feel like within the hunting world, but also other entrepreneurs I've spoken to, you're in touch with your customer. I think you know your customer better than most business guys. And I guess that's my first question. Like, what would you describe that customer? What's the pain point that you're solving for them? Like, who are they in your mind?
I think it's really important to understand what your customer is. And successful business people know how to do that. And they know how to do the right things for the right reasons. And I'm not a successful business person. I build and develop things that I want. Right? I solve problems that I know about. Now, I might be informed because of my exposure with a client, right? Or a training or a hunt that I go on with somebody. Sure. It's like, so I can use that data, but I want to do things that I want to do.
Yeah.
And as long as I keep having the right ideas, then I think the customers will come and they'll be a part of that.
There's just enough people out there that have the same issues that you're trying to solve.
I actually try to fight that in my company. And I'll share an example with you of how hard it is to do what I just described. We started doing, so Ian Robertson was making a great stock for us. He retired. We needed to find another place to do rifle stocks. And this was greater than 10 years ago, I think. Who am I going to go to? AG Composites didn't exist. I'm not sure if Manners had even started at the time. Like, who am I going to go to get stocks? It's McMillan,
yeah.
Right? So we started working with Macmillan to do the rifle stocks, and they had just started doing a carbon fiber stock. So it's kind of fitting in with our groove. And we did the Magnus Gen 1, and then we sent it to those guys. So they were the first guys to produce that Magnus Gen 1 for us. And so they built one and sent it back, and it's like it met our weight specs, you know. And the way they would do it is they would do a shell, and then they would pack a syntactic foam inside of it and cure that up. So it's the same way they've been doing it since, you know, the 70s, and it's still the same way they do it today.
Right.
And they would do the shell they were making at the time. They would take the carbon and they would saturate it with resin, and then they would do a wet layup. And a good system. It was the same way Ian was doing it, but with this system, they weren't doing a gel coat. They were just going carbon right into the mold, and they would just take a band of carbon, like a 6-inch wide roll of it, and they would just cut it off and do it, and it would just kind of lay up and overlap. And so you'd have these weird seams, and then you'd get some voids and some problems, and they would sand it, and they would send it with a little blue Bondo and fill it up. So here we are doing our models, and we're like, okay, so how do we make this look good?
Right.
And we invent the old sponge paint job.
Sure.
So the sponge paint job was, okay, here's a color, cover that spot. Here's a color, cover that spot. And so you do these colors, and they're cool, and they look great, and it would cover up the stock, and you could still expose a lot of carbon, because I've always thought carbon was a really cool product.
Right.
And from that origin, you know, I always ask for, can we actually do just a straight carbon stock? Because you go to the aerospace or you go to automotive, you have these beautiful carbon products. It's like, how come we can't get this done here?
Right.
And that was kind of the initial start for, okay, well, we designed 3 new products, because all the way, everybody makes rifle stocks with curves.
Yeah.
You go look at AG, you go look at Macmillan, you go look at these guys, you got lots of curves. Christensen Arms, all rounded, curvaceous. It's not because that's what looks best. And you go look at our Climber Magnus Verdict, right? These are kind of all kind of our Gen 2, like next generation product designs. They all have hard edges. They all have, you know, curves and flats, and they're not makeable by the old methods.
Yeah.
And we couldn't take that design to Macmillan and have them be successful. It's not compatible. So we had to develop new methodologies to create those, and the goal was, I want carbon stocks. I want to be able to make a beautiful carbon stock. So you'd look at one of those layups and you'd have 4 or 5 pieces that would be a part of that, but you couldn't find the seams, because we would cut and we would line up the carbon pattern perfectly, and you would have a hard time finding where those different parts came together. And it was an expensive material, and we could lay them up and make them look good. Well, guess what the customer wanted? Color. So we would take this beautiful, perfect carbon, and we would put paint on it for no reason other than the customer wanted color. And I've been trying to get out of that for almost a decade. And
because you knew perfection was in the non-colored.
Yeah. And so I developed the whole Nexus product with this in mind. I'm like, we're never painting one of these.
Yeah.
I'm going to put this trim and this accent and these colors and leather, and it's going to be the most beautiful, elegant product. We'll never have to paint them, and it will create a look for Gunwerks. And here we are 3 years after its inception, and the pressure from sales and the pressure from customers has driven it into, now we paint them.
Yeah.
And it is very, very frustrating for me, because that's not what I want. That's an example of me letting the market dictate something and work completely against what I want to have. Now, if it touched on performance, that would be a different story.
Right,
this is a cosmetic thing, and the truth is a tectonic forest Nexus with black leather is freaking hard to beat in looks.
Sure.
But every guy out there that's trying to be Gunwerks paints their guns to look like our guns, right? It's just one of the visual cues that it's so important to get right, is to develop a look that's unique. Here's another example of me fighting for that a performance aspect. So about 4 years ago, I said, we're never using a second focal plane scope again. And the reason why is personal experience and customer feedback. But if you've got a second focal plane scope and you've got a whole wind system for shooting where I'm trying to calculate and solve how many minutes I need to hold and then use the reticle as our precision tool to make that hold.
Yeah.
If I have a 1 minute of angle reticle and I tell somebody to hold 3 minutes, they're going to hold 3 marks. I'm not smart enough and capable enough that if I turn that down to 13 power, now what do I hold?
Yeah.
Because on a second focal plane, it completely blows it away. So I used to always hold 22 power, this is the old Night Force, 22 power or 11 power. And I wouldn't shoot on any other power. That was it. Unless it was a jump shot at, 5 or whatever. And so I knew at 11 power, it was 2 minutes per space. And then I would try to, keep track of that, make it work.
Right.
And I knew that this was a problem for customers. Wind is the number one thing, the most important thing in long range. You can buy everything else. So making a wind system that eliminates all the variables possible, and I'm like, we have to make this change. And the problem with first focal plane is nobody understands how to make a reticle. Everybody's trying to make these reticles that are super, super fine. And when you turn them down at all, they just disappear and they become worthless. Yeah. And you have to turn the illumination on to make them work. And so I designed a reticle that basically used the intelligence that you never really use below half power unless you have all the way to the bottom and you're doing something close. And so from half power up, it needs to be functional and usable. So I'm willing to throw away almost half of the reticle, knowing that if I get this right and then all the way down at the end, if I get that right, then it'll work.
Right.
And so we developed the RH1 reticle series that uses big, heavy, thick bars to solve this problem. It lets the reticle disappear for the lower power ranges, and then from half up, now it's there.
Right.
And that it gave us the option to say, no more second focal plane. Here are first focal plane options that will solve your problems and that will help you be more successful in the field. And we lost customers over this. I can't tell you how many guys said, if you won't do this scope, if you won't do a second focal plane, I can't buy your rifle. And we had to say, we believe that this is the right choice.
Right.
And therefore, we can't go back on that belief. Right? If it's better for the customer, if it's a better system, we're not going to make it less so, just to satisfy a lack of understanding.
Right.
And so we drew that line and we lost customers, but we've created a product that's better because of it. And I actually think we've helped move the whole industry towards accepting first focal plane again. From all the terrible Swarovski reticles that everybody hated, now we have a lot of reticles. And the more people will copy our RH series type reticle, the more adoption we'll see across the board.
Right, sure. And some of that, that's a good example in my mind of stuff that applies very much so to the practical aspects of hunting. I don't want to, if I'm going to hold wind, I don't want to have to make sure that it's at the max magnification that the reticle actually works for the wind that I'm holding, right? So those are things that come from hunting. Let's talk about that a little bit. Your experience hunting. I know that you guys, your son's getting into that side of the business a little bit. Let's talk about that. What have been your favorite hunts? Do you have any hunts you look forward to? And I guess also, tell us about that element of your business.
I will tell you that the hunts that have significance in my memories are the ones where I failed the biggest.
Okay.
We were talking about the sheep, not being able to process my brother's input that the wind was bigger and to make an adjustment, right? It taught me in training, the way you teach a shooter spotter to communicate is to call for action. Don't tell somebody that they missed.
Right.
Tell them exactly what they need to do to make it right and be direct, right? I watched a friend shoot an elk at 963 yards and he didn't read the body language correctly and he shot a little late. Elk stepped forward, hits it high in the lungs in the back, and then he proceeded to miss 6 more times at that elk standing broadside. And his buddy, I invited some friends up
Sure.
They actually are making competitive rifles. So they weren't shooting one of my rifles, they were
I
shooting
gotcha.
theirs. And so he's like, you were high, you missed, you were high, you were high. Like he was telling me these things, and the other guy kind of got in that panic mode and he wasn't able to make the correction.
Right.
All his buddy needed to do is reach over there and freaking crank the knob, right? Or say, you hit high, aim right at the brisket and break the shot.
Yeah.
Right? And just coach him through that. And it taught me a lot about, how to understand the limitations of our psychology when we're shooting, right? And the importance of making all of our systems more simple and more executable under stress by people who aren't experts.
Right.
I think.
And on that discussion, would you use the terminology that part of the model is to make your system more forgiving? Is that the idea, or is it more just that there's less variables? So
Well, let me show you a couple examples. So I just told you about the reticle, right? Another example that we were really proud of for the longest time was we loaded all of our ammo with Hodgdon, H1000 Rotumbo, the temperature stable powders.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were able to provide ammunition that didn't need adjustments for velocity for different conditions. So that took that off the table for the customer to remember, right? We build a ballistic turret that has your ballistics on it, right? We take that away from the customer. A lot of people don't know this, but we made the first rangefinder that did a real-time ballistic solution. Like we made that in 2011.
Right.
There was no competitive solution for 5 years, 6 years. I think it was 2017. I might be wrong on that a year, but Leica introduced the HDB binos that used kind of a table lookup method. And I know because we provided the online software that made the data that you'd put on the SD card. And then after that, then it was the SIG product. But like we literally had 5 years of total world domination on the most significant, I think the most significant long range product that had ever been developed in the history of the world. And we had no competitor.
Right.
So look at that product. Now all of a sudden you push a button. Now we don't have to worry about incline. How do we correct for incline? Just push the button.
Right.
With the ballistic turrets, you're shooting 700, 800, 900 yards. You used to have to worry about, well, what's the temperature? What's the elevation? How do I make that adjustment? Right? And so that's gone. So if you look at this over and over again, just the bipod, the way it functions, over and over again, every single development that we have, I can probably trace you to the hunt that I went on where I made a mistake and made a miss. You want to know about where that mandible change came from? It's like I was hunting coos deer, sheep and coos deer in Mexico, and we were sitting on top of a knob, and we had this huge 360-degree view that we were chasing. And of course, I'm at the height of my arrogance, thinking I can shoot as far as I can see.
Sure.
I actually had a gun that was a ringer. It was a 7 rem mag that cold, clean, no matter what, you sit down and you dope out to 1,200, 1,300 yards, you're cold bore sub-minute of angle. And I literally had just checked the gun the day before.
Sure.
Because I would do this all the time when I'm hunting. I'm like, how's things working? And I would stop and I would just check and shoot a rock or whatever if I could. And so I had this confidence in the gun, and we're sitting on that knob, and we're watching how the wind's moving, and we're trying to figure out how the wind's going, looking for coos deer and just glassing. And we finally seen one way up the draw, and I had to shoot just a little uphill, but I was a little downhill in body position. And we seen it, and then I get on the gun, and we're sitting there, and it just takes forever for him to pop out of the thick desert, vegetation and give me a shot. And so I was just sitting there, and you can tell I've got a big fat head, right? And so I'm resting that on there. I'm tired. I'm resting it, and then finally he gives me that shot, and I get on it. And I had my bag pushed all the way forward behind my grip, and then I had my cheek all the way back here, hard on that stock trying to get it.
Sure.
And again, I have extreme confidence in the behavior of my gun. So I shoot and I miss. I miss right over his back. And I'm like, the gun's perfect. I just shot this. It's awesome. So it must be the wind. I must have a vertical
Right.
pushing up that valley. And so I quickly made the adjustment because I saw where the shot went, because we have these great stock designs, right?
Sure.
I made a quick adjustment and held that exact amount lower and shot, and guess what I did? Broke his leg.
Hit right where you're aiming.
Hit right where I was aiming. And really quickly had to process what was going on and said, okay, it was you. Got another round in there, made a good shot, and finished. But my takeaway from that was I didn't know what happened on that first shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent months processing and digesting and then doing a few tests to reproduce that. But if you think about on your stock, if you're pushing down on the buttstock here and you're got this fulcrum of this rear bag, as soon as you pull the trigger and that stock starts moving, it's going to be influenced by those
Sure.
moments. And the light bulb came on. It's like, hey, this hard cheek pressure, solid in the gun is not the way to go. We need to lighten everything else up. We need to remove the shooter's influence from that buttstock. And every innovation and design since has been in that effort. And everything that we teach about the way that you shoot is in that effort.
Right.
And lightweight hunting guns with big Magnum cartridges, you do not apply the same techniques that these competitive influencers with 20-pound 6 PRCs or 6 Creedmoors or PVCs, small cartridges,
minimal recoil,
6XC.
yeah.
Like those do not apply. Those techniques are actually the worst thing that you can learn if you want to shoot the tools that we use as hunters. And so techniques, innovation, and design all stem from that. Right? And just keep tracing it back, and I'll tell you 1,000 stories about mistakes that I've made hunting, on 1,000 trips, pulling the trigger 1,000 times. And the successes and the big trophies, they don't resonate. It's the failures and what I've learned from those about everything.
Yeah, to innovate and then you use that to innovate on the overall system. Yeah, I get that, and I see that in your product. It's not that it's forgiving, it's simpler, and there's an avoidance of potential ways that the hunter can mess up an opportunity. That's what I see, with the overall system.
So our purpose in our business is to inspire and deliver the perfect shot. That's what we live for.
Yeah.
That's a very lofty goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have to ask though, follow on on the hunting question. Do you got any hunts that you're looking forward to, or that you want to do again?
I've never. I love hunting because it forces you to be exposed to something new.
Yeah.
New people, new cultures, new animals, new behaviors, new shooting challenges across the board, new. I've never quite caught the trophy equals my identity bug.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a very interesting psychology that exists. I'm not sure that it's bad until you start to try to push that on other people.
Sure.
But for me, the hunt, you won't ever catch me going on a hunt by myself. I have no interest.
Right.
No interest. Absolutely zero.
Right.
Because to be successful on a hunt isn't what my identity is. That's not what drives me. That's not how I define myself. So for me, a hunt is a social activity.
Sure.
A hunt is a chance to share with someone else. One of my children, a friend, a customer. So it's a very special thing to do that, I believe, right? There's mentorship, there's shared experience, there's that, in a lot of hunts, that physical and mental test that happens. That is a very bonding thing.
Oh yeah.
Right? I know when I was younger, I promise you, no one ever came out with a heavier pack than me. No way.
Yeah.
I would check. I would make sure I had the heaviest pack, because I wanted to go through the biggest test.
Sure.
I wanted to carry that load. There's things there in that hunting experience that are, to me, so much more significant than the trophy.
Yeah.
And I've always placed the shot. Like I've killed some really cool animals. If I shot the most magnificent trophy and I underperformed as a shooter, hunter, etc., and I failed, even though we've got success sitting there on the ground, it never resonated to me that was an accomplishment.
The shot component kind of tarnished the experience a little. Not tarnished is probably not the right word.
It does.
Yeah, is that,
for me.
Yeah.
If the shot isn't perfect, then to me, it's a failure.
Right.
Now, I will extract from failure everything that I can.
Sure.
And learn from it and grow from it, hopefully. We've talked a little bit about aviation, and I'm telling you, I think my instructor was about to quit because it took me so many tries to finally figure out how to land an airplane. Like if you can't do failure, you can never do anything great, because to get from where you are to where you want to be requires exposure to failure after failure.
Right. In the aviation deal, we were talking about it at lunch. You've caught that bug.
It's bad.
Big time.
It's really bad.
Let's get into that a little bit more. Do you see analogies with your own training for aviation, with the training you do with Gunwerks? Is there other things that you can relate from one world to the other?
You know, there's so many parallels, and there's so many things that I've learned over the past several years getting into this aviation thing. Something I haven't solved yet, but I want to figure out how to connect with, is aviation training has at its core massive consequences for failure.
Sure.
I want to be able to figure out how to connect that to shooting. Because I'm not one of these guys that we see out there in our space right now. There's a bunch of lily-livered so-called men that have a misunderstanding of what we're doing when we go to the field to hunt. Right? They don't understand. They don't understand the history of men and our drive to succeed. They've lost something.
Right.
Right? But at the same time, like I want to be able to share with every person that buys a Gunwerks rifle this same like intense and burning drive to make the perfect shot. I want everybody to celebrate the execution of the shot, not the size of the trophy on the ground.
Right.
Like that's a different story. In fact, most of the time that is a reflection on the guide.
Sure.
Right? That is your part of the story of the success.
Right.
Where for the hunter, like especially on a guided hunt, your job is to kill.
Right.
When it's time for you to call up and step up to the plate, like that is your responsibility.
Yeah.
And I just wish that I could figure out how to connect. Like in aviation, everybody automatically, shouldn't say everybody, most people automatically realize the gravity of failure.
Right.
Right? It's more personal. Where with hunting and shooting, especially precision shooting and chasing success, which sometimes brings in these greater distances, I would like to convey that extreme, intense desire to execute that shot with perfection, and the disappointment when there's failure, because I think what it can do is help our sport and our industry understand the gravity of that and really take serious our intense responsibility to be perfect.
Yeah,
we have to choose that. Though,
right. I'm thinking just out loud here, but as a pilot myself, the gravity of the situation, like you don't forget things on the checklist. in
I
an
do.
airplane.
I do.
Well, yeah, but
Thank gosh we have a checklist to go catch them.
I mean, but like you don't, when you're doing the checklist, you don't just skip a couple of the items just because you don't feel like doing it that day. Hunters do that all the time on the shot process. I mean, I've guided hundreds of guys. It's like, why did you just do that? Well, I thought we were in a hurry, or I thought, I'm nervous. It's like, well, that's not the protocol. You know what I mean? We got to do the system. So there is an interesting analogy there, and it's funny that you have that. You connect the two. And I was thinking about it when you were talking about training with an instructor, or, dealing with other people who fly. There's an element, Aaron, that like the feeling of making a perfect landing or execute, like feeling that perfection. It reminds me a lot this morning shooting with Brian and being like, oh yeah, I hit that target at 850 yards. Everything felt good. I was right back on the target. If I wanted to, I could shoot it again. Like it all felt right. That's just like a slick landing, right? I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but there's an analogy there too on that side of things. So
I think that there's, in my opinion, I derive more status from my ability to come through in the clutch.
Yeah.
And to put the bullet where it's supposed to go than the size of the animal.
Right.
All day long.
No, that I can appreciate that. And I don't think you're the only one like that. I think a lot.
No,
of
but I
others
think in today's world where you have what I told you, weak men, where we have this idea somehow that it's somebody else's responsibility to tell me how to behave and how to live and
Sure.
and how I should enjoy the pursuit of my pastimes. Like we are absolutely under threat by these people. And I think you cannot, they're not doing things by logic, they're doing things by emotion. Which is a huge problem that we have in our world today. But so you can't really show them the way and you can't really argue the way. So all we can do is develop the narrative on our side. And I think this pursuit of the perfect shot really is I think it's the antithesis of the legislating morality.
And that comes back to, what I would call quote, like Gunwerks controversy, once you started becoming popular, that I remember the idea that, well, that's great that you can shoot 1,000 yards, but I don't think you should.
Or
ever.
It's not hunting.
Right. Yeah, and that's
where I'm like, yeah, I think that guy's wife wears the pants in that household. It's like the whole point of hunting is to kill.
Right.
And if you look back at the history of men, the manliest men who provide for their families, I was like, the goal is to be successful. And if you're not successful, you starve.
Right.
Right? It's not we're going to go to the woods and we're going to meditate and we're going to find ourselves, right? If you're going to do that, sign up for one of those organizations that support that type of behavior.
Sure.
And go for a hike and leave the tags to the men, the people that are out there to kill.
Sure.
That's what we're doing. And if you lose sight of that, which a lot of people have, then that's where you start to get these crazy ideas. And what's really disturbing is even if you adopt this mentality and ethos, to think somehow that your thoughts and your morality and your ideas need to be pushed onto somebody else or legislated onto somebody else. It's the most abhorrent thing. It's the most abhorrent thing that I can imagine. I actually think it's worse than taxes. I really do. And taxes are very evil.
Yeah, I mean, because bringing it back to the hunting context, or if we extend it to, smart scopes or shooting long range or any of that, in a sense, you're deciding that you want to tell people how they want to enjoy their free time, how they want to approach this activity, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I understand your perspective on it.
Just like we can't make logical arguments to teach people about why banning this technology is stupid because you can just use these technologies together to accomplish the same thing.
Right.
So they're just doing this emotional reaction. We'll never be able to logically change their minds.
Sure.
But over on this spectrum, you have people that aren't willing to do the work to acquire the right equipment, to acquire the right skill sets, to shoot enough that they understand what their limitations are.
Right.
And they go out to the field completely unprepared, thinking that they have this level, right? They live here and they have this knowledge and skill, but actually they're operating down here.
Right.
Right? If you're a pilot and you work that way, guess what? Those are the guys that make the accident
You don't
reports,
last. Yeah.
right? But in the hunting space, those are the guys that are out there shooting and wounding, shooting and missing. Those are the guys out there that give, let's say, long range a bad name.
Right.
Because it actually has nothing to do with the distance. It's how far can you be assured that you can make a perfect shot?
Right.
Right? That's what the goal is. So I don't know if that's 300 or 1,300, depending on the situation. And it doesn't really matter the distance. It's, have you proven that? Do you have the equipment for it? Have you done the training? Do you know what the limitations are? Do you know all the different ways this can go wrong? And what have you done to insulate yourself from those scenarios?
Right.
Right? That's the real question. If it's really hard to use logic to get this person who doesn't know what they don't know to behave on a different plane.
Right.
And I think that's where just really focusing on this goal and this ethos and this drive to make the perfect shot, right? If we can establish that as the requirement, the expectation, then when we fall short, we know that we've failed. We know that it's an embarrassment, and we vow to fix the things so that we can be better.
Sure.
Because I'm not perfect.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I love that perspective, Aaron. So I have to ask, we've been at it here for a couple hours. Where's Gunwerks go next?
Well, we talked a little bit about this vertical integration. We talked about kind of some founding ethos and principles and the things that got me excited and like what we're trying to achieve and do. For the past 10 years, we've been on this journey to get control of what we do, whether it's design or manufacturing, right? We talked earlier about barrels and bringing barrel manufacturing in-house. And hopefully I shared a perspective that maybe you didn't have. If you go out into the world and you go buy an off-the-shelf barrel from a maker and you go, fit it and put it on your gun, you don't realize you did this, but you bought a mass-produced cookie cutter product. Just like you buy a Ruger rifle. It's a great product at a great value, but who knows how it's going to work? And is it proven? It's not.
Right.
It's not tested. If you go look at Gunwerks, we make every barrel that we use. We shoot every barrel that we make. It's truly a bespoke process to do that, where you just buy this mass-produced product. Guess who's the QC on that?
Yeah, you.
The customer.
Yeah.
So we're just doing this mission to get hold of all these things. And one of the reasons is to get control of quality, to maybe do a better job. Another one is if you can build it, you can actually say, hey, can we do this different and maybe make it better? Sure. So there's always the opportunity for improvements, but then there's also the value of throughput. So instead of a 10-month lead time, I remember at one point we had to order barrels 10 or 12 months in advance. That's ridiculous. Right? I mean, now it's just weeks for material. So I think there's a supply chain component of that and the faster delivery time. So maybe better quality, maybe innovation, maybe it doesn't sound like it coming from Gunwerks, but maybe lower cost because of inventory. So this vertical integration has been our focus and mission for quite some time. Like it's a huge challenge, and you made it through the shop. I actually have 2 more machines that are dropping.
Oh, yeah.
Big ones.
And I was blown away, the tour of your place. I mean, I've interacted with you guys for years, but I've never been in the facility. And to see how many different processes are getting down there and the things are being made there, it's pretty wild. Like I had a vision of it being 1/3 the size.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, there is.
So are you there on the vertical integration? Do you feel, are you going to do, is there more things that need to be done?
We're dropping a Swiss machine before the end of the year. That is probably, lets us do another set of parts that we don't do right now, like a firing pin or screws. That is a very significant product. There's a big learning curve on running it. I'm excited for that one. We actually can do everything else.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed is I always pay full price for everything. We were talking about airplanes. I think every airplane I bought's been in the height of the value of the marketplace, right? Every process that we've developed, I have paid full price to learn and to do. And it's expensive. It's very hard to create from nothing a system and process. You look at our stock manufacturing, we didn't have the benefit of working for Macmillan for 20 years and being able to go into that with improvements like Manners did, right? We don't have the ability in Cody, Wyoming necessarily to go steal other people's employees and bring their processes in. We've actually been more of a victim of that than anything.
Right.
So if you look at every single process that we've done or we have in our facility, we have had to develop from first principles, whether it's machining an action, making a barrel machine,
right?
Doing stock layup, carbon wrapping, all of those. Very hard-earned, very difficult. A lot of failures, a lot of cost.
Yeah, and a lot of skill set there. I was blown away seeing that too. Just watching the guys lay the carbon fiber.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm just naive to that process. There's no reason why I would have ran into it in my life, but to watch somebody actually meticulously do it is cool because you see that they're a pro at that.
Yeah.
No,
actually our stock team's pretty crack. They're pretty awesome. I think we went from about a 25% scrap rate last year. That Nexus stock is a bitch.
Okay, just the design.
Yeah, so you got this real high scrap rate. And we just implemented a new process after COVID because of supply chain. It's a beautiful process. It's magnificent, but we've had to develop it in line and incorporate it. And I think this year they're going to finish at like 4%.
Okay.
That's a killer team over there.
Big improvement.
They're rock and roll. But if you go look at our stocks are actually superior. Like we don't do a lot of this kind of claiming, right?
Sure.
Our stocks crush the way everybody else does it. It is so modern and it is so significant. I mean, we patented our process.
Oh, okay.
It is bad A.
So it is unique to you guys.
Yeah, you'll notice you didn't see a lot of videos showing how we do that.
Yeah. Maybe that's
we're usually pretty open.
Maybe that's why I was so blown away by.
We're usually pretty open about the stuff we do. It's like there's some things that we're doing we're not showing anymore.
Sure. So as part of the next 20 years of Gunwerks, just developing more of that, specialized skill set, specialized process inside your facility to just innovate and make better product.
I think a lot of guys. They don't understand the significance and lift of the smart technology products that we've developed.
Okay.
If you look at the smart rangefinders, the smart optics, the rifle scopes, and if you looked at the vacuum of engineering resources that's created in our entity, it's millions and millions of dollars of R&D. And up until about 4 or 5 years ago, we did not invest R&D into our Gunwerks products, significant dollars. Little stock design here, little GLR action thing here, but no ground up type work. The first place where we turned our engineering focus and said, let's do something great was the Nexus.
Okay.
So what you've seen is a small shift from this ballistic technology, these systems, and you've seen this shift start pointing towards rifle systems and slowly developing the skills and the muscles to take on really cool stuff. So, I mean, you just look at the stock processes, the barrel processes, those are cool. But then look at the NX2 action. Did you see one getting machined on our machine?
This morning I didn't.
We actually bar feed that action out of a 2.5-inch diameter piece of 70-75, and we machined that entire action on one machine in one go. And the system of doing that, in my opinion, is phenomenal because we've baked in all of the precision and tolerance into the manufacturing process, and that machine just goes cha-chunk and it makes one.
It's done.
Chunk, and it makes one. Yeah, we throw it in the tumbler, throw it in the anodize, it's done.
Yeah.
Like it's very significant from terms of, okay, here's this product and here's this manufacturing process. Here's this benefit, like here's this switch barrel, here's the weight savings. It's like all of those things have come together there. And as you look, okay, well, there's the Nexus. And did you shoot one today?
No, we just shot the
we
index
need to
today.
send one off with you and let you shoot it. I'll send you a 300 and you can pull the trigger on that, and your mind will not be able to process the data that it feeds you when you pull the trigger on that.
That is a 300, yeah.
Yeah, it won't,
recoil.
it's like does not compute. So as you look at that, right, there's our first real full attempt at doing something unique and creative.
Sure.
And just process what that is, right? And the magnitude of that project. And then now here's the index, right? And the Gen 2 version of that NX2 action. And the trigger component of that, and et cetera. So we're eating bigger and more sophisticated projects. As we continue down the road, the vertical integration piece is becoming more mature. I don't know if you noticed, but did you see any wood stuff kicking around?
I didn't see any.
Watch for that.
All right.
Wood's coming. I think what we're going to do is we're going to start capturing some of that early inspiration that I had coming to rifles, which is the art side.
Sure.
And as you walk around this museum and you see the wood and the steel and the timelessness of some of these things, of these makers, and you look in our space, in our world, and look at some of the greatness that exists there, I want to capture some of that for our customers as well.
Yeah.
So watch for an interesting fusion and blend of the art side and some of those traditional materials and the technology and the performance side. I think we've got some cool stuff planned.
I love that answer, man, because I feel like the industry is in some ways shifted away from that a little bit. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of the rifles that I test, I review, I hunt with, they're not rifles that I'm going to give to.
They're tools.
I'm not going to.
And I love tools. I think the beauty, in a lot of times, is in the function.
Sure.
Like the most elegant product is the one that lives up to its fullest potential.
Right.
And when it comes to a rifle, its potential is to put a bullet on that target.
Yeah, and work.
And the product that can do that is the most beautiful product.
Right.
But
if you can do that and have some history and art in it,
sure.
Why not, man?
Yeah, and as AI comes on board and we see a lot of AI creations, I think people are starting to realize and understand, you know, what the value of human input and creativity really is. It's different. It's better. And so I think we're going to see that come in. But at the same time, we're going to see that take the trend line, GLR, right? Remington 700 platform, you know, index. What's the trend line tell us for the next product?
Right.
So as we bone up our skills and as we've developed this really great complex organization that is solely due to and solely funded by our customers, right? They've received the benefit of the best ballistic solutions, the best turnkey rifle systems, the best stock designs, like this absolute relentless desire to deliver the perfect shot, right? They've got that benefit. And their funding and their patronage will support us into the next great innovations and the configurations that can satisfy their wildest dreams and desires and experiences they have planned for the next decade. I actually think as we look forward into the future, a very significant amount of our effort is going to be focused on the customer's experience. Because it's not always about the product. There's so many great products that are out there. I really think that we have an opportunity as a company to differentiate ourselves just in terms of a relentless focus on that experience, whether it's in the product quality, the product performance, the reserve experiences we deliver, the buying experience, the education experience, any of those things we can always elevate and get to the next level. And we have the drive to do that and the focus to do that. So I do think looking forward, that's what you can expect from Gunwerks.
Yeah. You know, it's been great to hear the history of 20 years and being here on the anniversaries. Awesome to discuss it with you, Aaron. And I look forward to seeing the next 10 years out of Gunwerks.
Well, I'll tell you what, in celebration of 20 years, we have a lot of cool small projects, whether they're limiteds, skunk works, makers, special editions, pro builds. Next year's going to be very busy as we celebrate 20 years of Gunwerks.
Good stuff, man. I look forward to it.
Thank you.
If you like what you're hearing here, please take a second and give us a 5-star rating and a positive review on iTunes or on your favorite podcast app. We appreciate your feedback and suggestions for topics you'd like discussed or questions you want answered on the podcast. You can reach out on Facebook or Instagram or send us an email to podcast@gunwerks.com. Also, be sure and check out our full offering of long-range gear at gunwerks.com. Use promo code LRP for free shipping on any order.